So the first event I've chosen is the end of the Cold War in 1991, and finally, after 45 years of political conflict, the Cold War did indeed come to an end. The Cold War ended with the fall of the Soviet Union, and with the collapse of the USSR, the entire socialist bloc came down as well. So the next event that we're going to talk about is when Nelson Mandela got elected president of South Africa in 1994. Nelson Mandela was an important philanthropist that successfully became South Africa's first democratically elected president. And now, going over, we're gonna discuss an event that I really find interesting, that is the Twin Towers collapse in 2001. And these were a series of attacks which were provoked by 19 Islamic participants of the group Al-Qaeda that stole 4 airplanes and carried out suicidal attacks with specific targets in the United States. And now moving forward, we're going to talk about the first iPhone when it was firstly launched, and it was in 2007. Specifically in June 29 of 2007, Apple released advertisements letting people know that the first iPhone was finally launched, and without them even knowing, they were marking a date in history which completely revolutionized the world as we see it nowadays. And last but not least, I decided to talk about when Obama became President of the United States of America in 2008, more specifically in November 4th of 2008. And I think this is a really polemic event because Barack Obama defeated the Republican presidential nominee and proudly became the first African American president in the country, which is something that many people didn't believe that could happen, but in fact it did on this day. So the first concept that we're going to discuss is globalization. So what exactly is globalization? Globalization is known for being the process that people and multiple governments as well as companies use in order to interact and create an international trade as well as investment with the use of technology as it is nowadays. Terrorism, a really polemic concept, I would say. So terrorism is basically the implementation of threats and violence, mainly for political, territorial, and extremist religious purposes. So the next concept that we have to talk about is the unipolar world. And the unipolar world means that the distribution of important influences such as cultural influence or military influence and power in general is exercised by one state or government. And the last concept, and I would say a really popular concept nowadays, a concept that we can see all around the world, and something that we basically live with in our cities, even though you're from one continent or the other. It's the digital era, and this era is commonly recognized by the constant increasing of technology, which has developed and has extended knowledge within economy and society. And the digital era's beginning was primarily marked by the digital revolution, which is another concept that we've seen in the content of this module. So now, in this part of the evidence, I was asked to make a connection between the terms described before and the events that I selected. The first terms that I'd like to connect are terrorism with the Twin Towers collapse, because this tremendously devastating event was driven by an act of the terrorist group commonly known as Al-Qaeda, which attempted to destroy important and famous areas of the United States of America. Action driven by cultural as well as ideological ideas. The next connection I want to make emphasis on is the concept of digital era with the release of the first iPhone. I believe that part of the development of a digital era was empowered by the usage of the smartphones, especially the usage of the iPhones. And moreover, thanks to the use of the iPhone, several technological methods have upgraded in order to satisfy the population's necessities, as well as transforming the importance of the digital era as a survival tool. Furthermore, another relation that is important to analyze is the term of globalization with the election of Barack Obama and Nelson Mandela as presidents of their own countries, and the breaking of prejudices that these events represented. These two important characters relate to globalization because in their governments they have opened up to a strong interaction with other governments, mainly for economical purposes. I'd like to point that especially Obama has used the technology that is under his power nowadays with the aim of establishing new international investments, which clearly explained that in his government he has used globalization as a successful strategy. On the other hand, I found another significant connection between the concept of a unipolar world with the end of the Cold War. The Cold War represented multiple conflicts and threats between two different nations that represented in general a bipolar world. Because of this, when the Cold War finally ended with the fall of the Soviet Union, a bipolar world, as it was known then, changed into a unipolar order, which gave power to only one government. So globalization emerged as a response from multiple governments as well as companies, which aim to expand their power into an international level one by taking advantage of the different technologies and advances all around the world. The terrorist attacks on the 20th century were primarily caused by groups from the Middle East that differed in ideological and religious ideas with powerful countries such as the United States and other potential ones in Europe. On the other hand, these events were also caused by rivalries between nations, also in a political and economical context, and the multiple counterattacks which seemed to have no end. The end of the Cold War clearly connects in a logical way with the concept of the unipolar world because it marked the ending of an era which had established the world as bipolar. And with this being said, it is easy to infer that with the fall of the Soviet Union, the world revolutionized and became unipolar. The digital era has strongly converted the world into a network society. In general words, I'd like to say and emphasize in the fact of how significant it is that the increasing need for knowledge and the rise of an e-culture has emerged with the new advances that this event brought into our modern society. And in addition to all of this, the world, thanks to this new era, has been constantly changing and upgrading in terms of social communication, even with long distances between the people communicating, recreational as well as educational.